Arthur Saxon was born on April 28, 1878 in Leipzig, Germany. This legendary circus strongman and former Greco-Roman wrestler, who was a contemporary and rival of the great Eugen Sandow, was famed for his exceptional feats of strength. Perhaps most astonishing was his ability to lift 370 pounds overhead with one hand. To this day Saxon still holds the world record for the bent press and the two hands anyhow lift, two staggering feats of strength that will likely never be surpassed. To make these exploits all the more impressive, Saxon only had a relatively small physique. Indeed, weighing in at only 200 pounds and standing at around 5 feet 10 inches, his stature was far from Herculean. From an early age he was fascinated with feats of strength, and when he was 14 he started fashioning weights from stone in his parents' potato cellar. At 15, Arthur, along with his two younger brothers Hermann and Kurt, began organizing strength contests in the backyard of his parents' house. The Saxon boys challenged other lads from all over Leipzig at arm wrestling, weightlifting and belt wrestling. Over the next few years, this uncouth form of backyard entertainment would evolve into one of the most famous strongman acts of all time, in the form of the Saxon Trio. In the early years, Arthur Saxon trained using predominantly one-handed lifts. He did not use a barbell and instead employed dumbbells, kettlebells and ring bells. His favorite lift, and the one that he would later become famous for, was the bench press. In 1897, the newly formed Saxon Trio began touring with the Ringling Brothers Circus, performing their strength act to audiences across Europe. They were hailed as the great German giants of strength, and Arthur was billed as the strongest man on earth. The Saxon Trio were the first strength act to demonstrate the real possibilities of weightlifting. They shattered records and set new standards, putting on the greatest shows of strength that the world had ever seen. There were no gimmicks or illusions in their show, as was the case in many other strongman acts, just pure strength. Arthur Saxon crowds were left speechless as Saxon performed breathtaking feats of strength. In one part of the act, Saxon lifted a barbell with his brothers seated at either end, with one hand. Another act consisted of the three brothers supporting a bridge with their feet while a car with 6 men inside was driven across. Perhaps Saxon's greatest feat of strength, however, was the two hands anyhow lift of 448 pounds. In this he pressed a barbell of 267 pounds overhead from the shoulder with the right hand, after which he picked up and brought aloft a kettlebell weighing 119 pounds with the other. The trio did what no previous strongman had ever done. They threw their stage open to the public, allowing their weights to be tested at any time. The trio would often offer a cash prize to members of the audience who could lift the same weights which they lifted on stage. The trio toured the world, achieving widespread fame. One evening in Sheffield's Grand Music Hall, in February 1898, when he was performing with the Saxon Trio, Arthur, as was customary in his act, went into a spiel about how he could outlift anyone in the world, including rival strongman Eugen Sandow. Bear in mind that during the 1890s, Sandow was the reigning king of strength in England. His reputation was untouchable. Sandow was in the audience that night, and he came on stage. Sandow was unable to replicate Saxon's bent press. He tried again and again to lift the kettlebell over his head, but each time he failed. In the weeks that followed, Saxon began to promote his shows with posters and flyers that trumpeted his crushing victory over Sandow. Humiliated by this turn of events, and riled by Saxon's brash marketing material, Sandow took the trio to court. Unfortunately, due to a misunderstanding in court about the mechanics of the lift, Sandow won his claim, and Arthur Saxon was prohibited from marketing himself as being stronger than Sandow. After fighting in the First World War and suffering from malnutrition, Saxon returned home beset with health problems. He tried to resume his strongman act but failed to summon the legendary strength he had shown before the war. Arthur Saxon died from pneumonia on August 6, 1921. He was 43 years old.